Hey, everybody. And how are you, Terry?
I'm great. Hope everybody else is too.
Great. Yeah. People are coming in. So first
Great.
we have Barbara's here. Good to see you, Barbara. She says, looking forward to this episode, Andrew.
Hi, Barbara.
As people are coming in, let me welcome you. Let us know where you're watching from. We got Jeff here. Good to see you, Jeff. Greetings from New Jersey. Yes. Where is everyone watching from? And we got my friend John from Texas. Hello, Terry and Andrew. Yes. Good to see you here, John.
Hi, John.
I'll let people come in for a little bit. So we got Catherine from California. Good to see you here.
Oh, nice. That's where I live.
That's right. And Andrea from Australia. Nice.
Gosh, that's great. I wonder what time it is in Australia.
Right. And John says 99 degrees today in Texas. Oof. It's starting to cool off a little bit here in Los Angeles.
It was 97 here yesterday.
Oof, too much.
Yeah, brutal.
We have Soleil from Brooklyn, New York. Nice. Dean from Minneapolis. And Andrea says 6 a.m. So it's 6 a.m. in Australia.
Whoa.
She's very dedicated to this wonderful live event.
Thank you, especially Andrea. That's amazing.
Cool. So yes, welcome everybody. Let us know where you're watching from. And let me just say, for those who might be watching from the Facebook groups, just a reminder to please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pic so that I'll be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. That's just the link underneath the live in the groups, StreamYard.com/Facebook. Give that a click, give the permissions, jump on back. And while I'm speaking of StreamYard, let me give a little shout out to StreamYard, who makes this all possible, multi-streaming app. Here's a little intro to StreamYard. Thanks, StreamYard. So yeah, I can stream to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. And if I was on Twitch, I could also stream to Twitch. So yeah, great app. Thank you. And let's see. So we got Ellen from Massachusetts.
Oh, that's one of our sisters.
Oh, great.
Hi, Ellen.
Welcome. And then maybe that's another one from San Jose, Sister Cheryl Milner. Is that it? Or just ask Cheryl Milner?
I don't know.
Okay. And we got Rob Daniels. Good. Yeah. So let me just remind Rob that once again, if you go to the little link in the Facebook groups where it says StreamYard.com/Facebook, give that a click, give permission, and then it'll show your name and profile pic. So what about everybody else? Some of the Facebook users say no sound, but I think it's fine for everybody else. Please let me know in the comments how the sound is. We got Peter from England. Please let us know in the comments if you can hear us just fine. You can hear me, right, Terry?
I can hear you, yeah.
And I can see Dallas, who's on Facebook. Yep, it's coming in through. Yeah, there's only someone. Okay, Dallas says he can hear us. Great. Okay,
Great.
So just one person cannot hear us on Facebook. Make sure to either refresh the page on Facebook or restart your browser. And we have Catherine also saying, YouTube, hearing you just fine. Great. So with that, let us have Terry introduce herself. I should say Sister Terry Davis. So welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you, Andrew. This is just an amazing opportunity. I'm really, really happy to be able to share with all of you my work and also a lot of the deeper reasons why I do the work I do. So it's really important to say you may not know what sister means in front of Terry Davis, but what it means is I am a Catholic sister. And that is really important because, as I described later, there's a very good reason why I even have an art website, and it's related to that. So just a little bit of background. As a Catholic sister, I began by teaching, and while our sisters teach at all levels, elementary up through university, I really taught in high school for the most part. I worked in administration for our sisters, and in that capacity, really traveled all over the world, especially some of the areas where we have some of the most vulnerable people in the world. So that experience actually completely changed me. And changed my perspectives in terms of being really grateful for what we've got. And sorry, not everyone has as much as we do. I also worked in communications. Had the very unfortunate task of meeting the media all the time, which, you know, didn't always go so well. But I did develop quite a respect for reporters and the job that they must do. And then at one point, I actually set up a very small graphic design service for nonprofit organizations and religious groups that I felt were also carrying out our sisters' mission, which is all about being and recognizing and affirming the goodness in our world and in everyone. So when we were founded way back in the early 1800s, our founders was really strong on our service to those who are most vulnerable. And so I had the chance to see a lot of that, to see the good our sisters are doing and to support that.
Great.
At this point, did you have a question, Andrew?
No, I said great. Sounds great.
Oh, okay. At this point, you'd have to say I'm sort of semi-retired, having been a sister for 55 years. That status gives me time to volunteer. And on the side, I also handle social media for our sisters across the United States. But it also really gives me time for my own art, which at this point is largely photography and what I call photo painting. So it is creating artwork digitally. And I use, I'll go through some of the different processes I use. But it was about 10 years ago that I read about this idea. It was just called 365. And I suspect a lot of you have also heard of that. So 365 just means you commit on any given day to take a photograph every day for a year. And it sounds so simple, which of course it didn't wind up being simple when I got home at the end of the day, and then I had to take pictures in the dark or inside or try and find something interesting where I lived, which was all way too familiar. And I found myself seeing my own city very differently. I actually went to different parts of the city just to see some new parts of it and have new subjects to photograph. A very simple kind of commitment, but so powerful. It really led me into all kinds of learning. I would try to get something, then think, how can I really do that? And it also helped me really see beauty in the ordinary. And it forced me out of that, well, if you have the same tendency to kind of rely on the same thing you've always done, it really got me out of that, to try something new and to learn something new. So if anyone has not tried 365, I really highly recommend that.
Great.
So during these years, one of the things I really got into was social media. And somewhere along the line, of course, I found Andrew's group. And I must tell you, it's really a great honor for him to ask me to do this, because when I first went on, I thought, oh, I don't think I'm up for this. I don't think my stuff will qualify. But over the time that I've been a part of his group and many others at this point, I've really learned so many things that I feel like my art has something to say to that group and to other photographers. A really fun thing was that I just saw amazing, I would just scroll through the page and see amazing creations. And even though some of them weren't really my style, I did wind up asking myself, how did he or she do that? How might I do that? And occasionally I would actually just take a screenshot and try to replicate what I saw. So I just found that tremendously inspiring. And I'm really grateful to Andrew and other Facebook administrators that they put all this time into something that really makes a lot available to us. It's a way of connecting with other artists. And yeah, I really got into that. And then Instagram and Twitter. I haven't gone to Twitch yet. Don't even know what that is. Right. And I'm probably going to always avoid TikTok, but you know.
Sure.
So far, do you have any questions, Andrew?
No. Do you want me to share your screens and start jumping into your work?
No. I have quite a bit more to say. I just want to give anyone a chance to ask a question if they have any so far.
No, I think they're just taking it in. Yep, waiting to see your work. So yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, one of the things that I learned or discovered on social media was a Facebook page called Florography, beginning with PH instead of F. And so it's largely a Facebook page dedicated to the photography and processing of flowers, which happen to form a large part of what I do. I've just always been touched and attracted to the beauty of flowers. So when I joined this group, I noticed that the person, Jackie Kramer, some of you may know her or know of her. She just runs phenomenal groups. And she at the time was offering a workshop. So I signed up for photographing tulips in the Skagit Valley in April of 2020. So of course it got canceled. But she did a really great thing. She offered those of us who had paid the fee to be able to put that amount of money toward online learning. And she developed this wonderful year-long course in photography that most every week has either a presenter or a review of your work. So one week, an artist photographer would present an idea, a technique, a new way of doing things, or a new use of equipment, give you an assignment, and then you go to a restricted Facebook group and post your work. So the value, of course, was I got to see what other people did with the exact same assignment. And then you get an expert really looking at what you did and giving you a lot of suggestions for how you can make it better. And I'm now in the third year of taking that class. And if anyone wants to check in, look at Florography run by Jackie Kramer, and there'll be information there.
Great.
Okay, so let me see, that's all. Then in the year 2015, I joined a service called Fine Art America. And again, a lot of you may know of it. It's a really large artist's website, and you post your work, you pay a small yearly fee, and then people can go look at your work and purchase any kind of print on demand. So everything from pretty sophisticated framed prints to yoga mats, tote bags, greeting cards. And the reason I joined that has everything to do with why I am a Catholic sister. And when I was in administration for our sisters, we set up what we called the Jubilee Fund, because we set it up in the year 2000. And this was a resource that we saw into the future, supporting our sisters who work and serve in Africa and Latin America, many countries that really might not, even into the future, be economically sustainable enough to even pay our sisters for anything. But they certainly had many of the people we want to reach. So we set up this fund and asked our sisters who live in wealthier countries to begin to fund it, to make a commitment every year. And they have, and it's wonderful. So as we look to the future, this fund will support people working with some of the poorest and most disadvantaged people in our world. And so it does things like pays for their education, their formation, their living expenses, which isn't such an attractive donation appeal, but it's really crucial. And so therefore, I set up this site so that all proceeds go directly to the Jubilee Fund. It's great. It's set up with a PayPal account, and I get an accounting, but I personally never see the actual money. It goes straight into this cause that I really believe in. So that website is called, it is called Art for Good.
So I post that up. That's Art for Good.
Yeah.
So it's 3terrydavis.pixels.com.
So anything you or anyone would purchase there, while the proceeds are not huge, because I try to keep the markup low, it all goes to a very good cause. And it's my way, since as a Catholic sister, I don't personally have any money. It is my way of contributing to something I really, really believe in. So I set that up in 2015, and it really has been pretty successful. And it just keeps me going. Every time I see that someone has purchased something, I think about the sisters and the people they serve. And it's just a great source of joy for me.
Great.
So again, I just want to check in and see, does anyone have questions about sort of my bio or what I'm doing?
I think they're just waiting to see your work. I think they're excited to see your work. So.
Okay, well then before I jump right into the actual work, I thought I would just go through what I call my essentials. And they apply to any art I've ever done. The first is be willing to experiment. Ask the question, what if? What if I do this? In different programs, if you're in digital programming, or digital programs, look at features and ask, well, what would that do? Why haven't I used it? Can I learn how to use that? And so especially that's true for me in Photoshop and Lightroom to some extent, but mostly Photoshop. There are things I hadn't used for years and years, and then I'm so surprised at results I can get just by being willing to experiment. Another thing is to create something and leave it, and come back in a day or two and look at it again. Because in the meantime, I think you can be refreshed, and you can also see if you're just doing the same old thing, or were you pushed to do something new and perhaps more creative. The second thing I'd say is commit to ongoing learning. And there's so much out on Facebook, YouTube. Andrew has these wonderful video sections like this, and it has amazing artists and very gifted people who share for nothing. They share what they do and how they do it. And so a commitment to learning is absolutely crucial. Go and explore other photo art sites. And like I suggested before, if you see something you really like or think, wow, that is beautiful, ask how the person did it and try to do it. And then, of course, apply the technique to your own artwork. It's just a really good way to learn. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything I'd say as an intro. And I am going to go to my slideshow unless there are any questions.
Just someone had asked about the groups, but I thought we could talk about that later. So we can, list the groups later that you talked about, my group and the other groups you talked about. So let's jump on in. You can see the photo painting.
Okay, so just because I've never done this before, do I click on share?
No, it's already being shown. So you just need to hit the right arrow key when you want to progress to the next image. So you're in the first image.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
So trees.
Let me go back. So sure. I'll start by saying the image I chose for the cover happens to be one of my favorites. And it really has a couple of things I talked about. First of all, I don't know how many of you have a big, heavy, wonderful camera. And when people started talking about iPhone photography, I thought, really, I can't believe that iPhone photography would ever compare with what I can get with my camera. Well, this is an image I got with an iPhone and a little app where I was able to get multiple exposures. And you probably all know how difficult it is to get the exposure right in a regular camera when you're trying to do that. This little funky little app works like magic. So I will at the end kind of go back to this one in particular and really show you what I did to get here. Sure. But let me go on to the next slide. And the one on the far right is the final image and is one of the ones that I like the best and that some of my viewers really appreciate. At the top to the left, this image was the original photograph I took on a typically foggy day in Stockton, California. And, it's just got almost nothing to recommend it, along with way too much detail and really inferior lighting and no contrast. It was a dud. But the bottom one below it just represents my basic editing process. And it started with eliminating distracting elements like this house over here, this telephone pole, these things, these little headlights coming at you. So I did all of that and then just adjusted lighting and exposure, added some extra light to get this image, which had I stopped there, would have been a nice image. But then I decided to run it through one of my favorite things, which is the Topaz filters. They're called Topaz photograph filters, and they're amazing. I was lucky enough to get the originals way back, so I have the actual standalone programs. They've kind of moved on from that at this point, which I'm sorry about, but you can still manage. This happened to be the filter that is called Simplify. And obviously what it does is it eliminates a lot of extraneous detail that doesn't help you, it just distracts you. Well, of course this, but over in the one that was done, again, it's just too much. So this reduces it and begins to create these lovely overlapping transparencies. And I just find that so attractive. I actually ran it through that filter 3 different times. And each time it became more and more intriguing. And so again, it goes back to try it again and again.
So John says gorgeous.
Oh, thank you, John.
Jeff says lovely. Peter says stunning. And Denise says, I think this is my favorite.
Hi, Denise. She's also one of our sisters. Thank you. It's one of mine too. Okay, I'll go on to the next slide unless there are any specific questions about this one.
No.
Okay. The next one, the very first image, again, I happen to have a fascination with these winter trees that are mostly bare limbs and kind of random occasional leaves clinging on. For whatever reason, I find that just really visually intriguing.
And Terry, can you answer a question real quick before you jump into that?
Oh, yeah. How can I use Simplify in the newest version of Topaz? Okay. It's just not as easy, but if you use the newest version, which is Topaz Studio 2, and you go into, I think it's artistic, you can get into some of those simplify options. Again, it's just not as easy, or I don't feel as user-friendly as the standalone programs, but you can do it, and you can begin to get familiar with the filter options in the newer Topaz. So it is doable. As I say, it's just not so easy. Okay, so this is the original image. Again, not terribly interesting. Then you come over here and you can see I eliminated this little, whatever it is. I eliminated this. I didn't eliminate that, which I think was an oversight, but so I did that. I brightened it. I dealt with the contrast, and then I began to play with it. And at one point, it was after I had run it through Simplify. So again, you see those almost web-like transparencies, and it was nice. But I had this what if moment, and I thought, what if I invert the image? And it came out just like this lovely blue, cool-toned image that to me said more about winter than the original photo for sure. And there were a few other things I did. I added some blur, and I created a very light vignetting around it. And those are just basic Photoshop things.
Nice.
Okay, these two, and I'm sorry they aren't as clear as they should be, but these two are both the result of using the old Simplify in two different ways. And this is much bigger portions and far less of the transparencies. And this is a combination image. So I had the tree that I had done. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It is kind of like fractal. But the tree I really did in that Simplify. And then I took the background and did just a lot of vertical blur, and I added a glow. And then I combined the two images to create this one in the end. Okay, next slide. Great. These are two that show really much more abstraction. The one on the right here, which was actually a hibiscus flower, I originally went to that Average Cam Pro and got a multi-exposure image, which didn't look anything like this. It was very clear, and again, those nice transparencies. But I then put it through a small iPhone app, and I've kind of forgotten the name of it at this point, but I'll remember it eventually. It's just one of those little photo altering apps, and it automatically adds this little rugged edge. And it was basically, I did very little in Photoshop after I created this. This one over here began as a straight image with my camera, and I put it through the Topaz filter impressions, which, for those of you wondering, how can you do such a thing in the current Topaz version? I did this. You can find that in the artistic and creative sections. You can find impressionist painting features. And it's really worth exploring that so that you can get to it. And again, in the end, I actually created several layers that I would put on top of each other. And here's where I really used Photoshop's layers and masking, merging in different ways in this one. So by the end, it wound up looking very, very painterly. And the very last one, you really can hardly see it, but it's a very light canvas texture. So it would retain a sense of having been painted.
Nice.
So now I'm going to show you several photos that began with an actual nautilus shell. And I just got fascinated with the incredible beauty of that shell. And then putting that with Photoshop techniques. This was actually 3 different original images. The outer big one, there's an inside one, and then the very center one was also another one. I did each layer with different color choices. And here again, I used another Topaz filter, which is called Restyle, and will give you your image in a lot of different amazing color options. So I did that to get that blue and pink look. Here are 2, again, with a different photos of the shell, but handled very differently. This one over here went much more abstract with the Topaz impressions. And then I did, again, several layers that I merged to get this complex color thing. And then over here, this one, while it was 3 different images, 1, 2, 3, I just put this one on top and made that more focused and
Terry,
yeah.
You can't see the cursor, so just when you're talking about image,
I'm sorry. I keep thinking you're all seeing my cursor.
Okay, so yeah, you can just say left or right.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Andrew. So
great.
it's the one on the left where I wanted to leave the center highly focused. And then I changed the whole color thing to be very, very ocean-like.
Nice.
And here's one where it's, again, a composite photo of the shell. And very faint in the background is a second image of the shell. And then in the bottom layer is actually the ocean in Carmel, California. So I just put the 2 images of the shell on top and merged them in a way to preserve the transparency of the shell.
Nice.
So this heads into something I really love. First of all, I love photographing flowers. And secondly, the use of textures. So the top one over here on the left is the original picture, original photograph, which had a number of issues, one being lighting, the other being not enough space around it. But I decided to work with it anyway. So I often purchase some textures, and I'd like to give a shout out to Jay Johnson's thedailytexture.com, where she really has extraordinarily beautiful textures. The one on the bottom is actually 3 of her textures that I merged to create this new one. But I would still give her credit for it because she creates this wonderful painterly style. And then I actually brought in this image, worked on it to really improve the lighting, and then merged it in with the background in different ways. So right here, you retain some of the sharpness, and over in here, you lose it. And so the texture really looks like it's coming into the flower, which between all of us kind of hides the problem of the original photo, which did not allow enough space at the bottom of the flower. Okay, let me see. I think I have a couple more just to show you images where I use textures. And here, each of these is mostly a texture in the background. So with this lovely sunflower, I added just a shadow to the back of it and merged those all onto a texture I felt really complemented the colors. And then the leaf pretty much sits on top of the background texture. And in each case, I did not really merge the image with the texture. It's more like it's on top of it. A lot of times I will then take that texture, put a final copy on top, and then have it as an extremely light layer and often mask out parts. For instance, in the leaf with raindrops, I really masked out the raindrops, and with the sunflower, very much the inner part of it.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, these have a nice painterly feel. Before you started working on this type of media, did you ever do like oil painting or watercolor painting itself? It has a nice.
Oh, that's such a good question. Actually, I did. I had a first degree in art, which was a very traditional art degree, fine art degree. So I did drawing, painting.
Great.
The thing I actually discovered and fell in love with when I first studied for the first degree was hand lettering, calligraphy. And I did that for years. But yes, I love, well, actually, I'll just get a pen or a pencil and draw just for fun. So I have, and with painting, I would say my painting never reached the level of being all that good. But I did enjoy painting, and I love the painterly quality of some of these effects.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, they good.
Okay, so here's another one of a texture. Again, this is mostly one of Jay Johnson's from the Daily Texture. And it actually was a bird out on my fence. And I was able to get an amazing shot. It was just seconds before it flew off. But it's looking at me like, really? Are you going to take this picture? And then I eliminated the background, which did nothing for the bird, and replaced it with this texture. And in this case, none of the texture is on top of the bird. Actually masked it out totally on the bird.
Nice.
So do any of you have texture questions? I mentioned the Daily Texture. Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, I like the way that the texture of the bird itself kind of mimics the texture in the background. They're kind of mimicking each other.
Well, choice of texture is probably just a highly subjective kind of thing. But I really filter through all kinds of my textures, often making my own by combining several or going out and making my own textures. And the app, Joe, the app that I used for using the textures is almost always Photoshop. I'll import the texture into a Photoshop file and have it either as the background or have it as a foreground and mask out, let's say, the bird. And that's the way this one was done. So in this case, the texture is totally at 100% and completely replaces the background.
Nice.
So I thought I'd show you a couple. I was talking about my Fine Art America Art for Good. And these are some of the images that well, obviously this was even created to be a greeting card. And this is one that a number of people have really appreciated and purchased. So I just thought I'd show you a couple of these simple card images. Here is a sympathy card. And often what I will do is write my own verse, not worry about having to get copyright permission. So that would be the case in this one.
Nice.
Then another subject that I have absolutely been fascinated with are cactus plants or succulents in general, because I've heard that agaves are not really cactus, they're succulents. this is the kind of image that works so well to create a multiple exposure final image because they're large, flat shapes with very defined edges. So the first photo was actually, again, taken with the Average Cam Pro and my iPhone. Then I brought it into Photoshop. And here's where I replaced the background with a lovely pastel texture, and then added some different colors. So the original agave plant really did not look like this, of course. It didn't have these bright colors. But in creating a more artistic and inviting image, I then really worked to simplify it. I used the Topaz impressions, and you can see in the bottom broad leaves in the center, you can see some of the painterly effects. And that was really done with that Topaz impressions filter. And on the rest of the plant, I really eliminated that filter. I really kind of only kept it in the very center at the lower part of it.
Great. So Roseanne says, fascinating to see what you start with and end up with adding light, layering, and texture.
Thank you. I must tell you, Roseanne is one of my former students. I will say one of the best.
Nice.
Thank you, Roseanne. Okay, Catherine asks, are we actually going to learn something?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, you know, the variety of the lives that I do, it's a mix between, say, Photoshop kind of tutorial focused or Lightroom, and then there's ones like this where it's more of a showcase of an artist. So this is more of a showcase of her work, and wonderful work that it is. And so not necessarily learning direct processes, but just to see her expression.
Well, let me just tell you, I've had a couple of people contact me through Facebook groups and ask if I will tell them how to do something specifically. And I really have done that. I've created what's called a step-by-step. And I go through, because I keep careful notes in Photoshop of what I've done at each point. So in the Photoshop layers, I will indicate what I did to achieve the next image. So on the off chance anyone would be interested in doing that, you just private message me. And Catherine, I don't know if you'd be interested, but I really actually very much enjoyed working with a couple people to go through and say, here's exactly what I did. And then they would send me what they tried to do, and I would give them feedback on how they might make it different or better, or whatever.
Nice.
Okay, here's another agave plant. And this is totally done with that Average Cam Pro that created all those lovely shapes. And then I refined it, added lighting, and altered the color somewhat to get this image. And I didn't actually use any of the Topaz filters on this one. Let me see. I'm just looking at Buzz's comment. I have an old version of Topaz Adjust. Don't know if that is the one you're using. Oh, okay. Well, no.
But he says it does have Simplify. So.
Yeah, thank you. I don't use that one. I have always used Simplify. I like the impressions ones, but really, if anyone wants to get into those Topaz filters, it is amazing what their capacity is. So, and the website has a lot of tutorials on it to help you.
Great, nice.
Okay, this is again just another one where I went in and thought, what if I just radically changed the colors? And so this is a big departure from what it originally looked like, but I just thought kind of fun to see this very colorful, brighter image.
So can you go back to the last one?
Mm-hmm.
So a question I have is with some of the images that you've created, are you also influenced by stained glass, which I know in different churches, they had to have stained glass?
Well, you would think so, but no. It's just that to be
It
honest,
reminds me of it though.
the Topaz Simplify filter creates that look, and I love the look.
Sure.
And so actually, I have never, but many people have made that same observation, and I agree. It does kind of look like modern stained glass. Actually, I have a really good friend who's a stained glass artist. Maybe I'll ask her to consider some of these.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Anyway, her name's Elizabeth Devereaux, if anyone wants to look up a great stained glass artist.
Sure.
So this one started out as one of those incredible dahlias. There's a background texture from Jay Johnson again. And with this one, it was only one image that I created the multiples in Photoshop. So I have 4 different layers. They're in varying sizes and varying levels of opacity. And I twist them somewhat. So I create that same kind of multi-layered effect by just using Photoshop.
Nice.
Here are just a couple of images. I just thought I'd show you again different ways to use that app, Average Cam Pro, with the Average Cam Pro, sorry, with an iPhone. And this one was just on the left is just a hubcap. And the one on the right is again a hibiscus flower.
Nice.
So the one on the right, I took by just slightly moving. The one on the left, I really did try to rotate it and keep the center static.
Nice.
Oops. So I thought then I would kind of get the last ones are almost all abstract, which is actually my favorite kind of art to look at. I love abstraction, where you just reduce to the beauty of color and line and form. And this was actually at a golf course in autumn. So it was using intentional camera movement, where I just went up and down with the camera. Oh, Jeff, I agree with you. Textures are almost an art form in and of themselves. Yeah. Again, go to Daily Texture and you just see some fantastic art. This is from an image I took while I was in Manhattan at a very good friend's home that has an extraordinary view. And it really is that intentional camera movement. And then when I processed it, I put a beautiful texture on top of it. So you see over to the left, especially, or where it gets dark, you see that almost linen finish to it. And that is really from the texture that alters the color somewhat, and then also gives it that more canvas painterly effect.
Nice.
This is a combination photo again, and all of it was done with regular photos. And so the background of birch trees, I made into a photo painting with Topaz impressions. I did the same with that little red tree, and then decided to merge them into one image. And all of that in Photoshop.
Nice.
This is another example of a very different kind of interpretation of intentional camera movement. And I took the original picture straight. The second picture I took with a vertical blur, and the third one with a horizontal blur. So I kept the bottom layer in Photoshop at 100%. Then the top layer, which was the vertical one, and you can see that in the reeds and in the very tops of the trees. But the horizontal one is the one I used for the fog. And combining those different ways of motion with the camera into a single image, I thought was pretty effective.
Nice.
So here are a couple more of intentional camera movement. The one on the left is called Walk to Work, which I used to do when I lived in Stockton, and the autumn was always beautiful. The one on the right is that very beautiful entrance to the Modern Art Museum in Santa Fe. And so the one on the right also has two different intentional camera movements. One is vertical, and the top part was done with horizontal. This is, again, a combination image. The background image is one I took looking down south off of Highway 1, north of Big Sur and south of Carmel, California. But then I merged it with an image of surf. So it's actually a combo image, all done with slow shutter. Then I thought I'd quickly show you a couple other composite images. Really, this one is that old barn. Another image is the tree. The third image is the moon, and the background, and actually I use it as a very light foreground, is a texture. All done in Photoshop. This is the same idea. Background image is a full regular photograph. I added both the house and the tree.
Nice.
And this is a final one, like a really rundown old building. I added the whole background texture, put the house on top, then found a tree I thought kind of complemented it, added the moon, and added the birds. The texture is actually from another source. It's two Lil, L-I-L, owls. And they have wonderful textures, not so painterly as Jay Johnson's, but perfect to just add the feel of texture and all these little spots and wonderful complexities. So I said I would end with what I began with. And this is, I thought I'd show you kind of the process, talk quickly about it. The first image on the bottom to the left was the original photograph taken with that Average Cam Pro. The top one was my effort to just do basic processing in Photoshop, brighten it, soften it, so forth. The third up on the top right was a full strength image of the same flower. The final one is where I put the top one, the small full photo, on top of the others to make sure that the center of it, which you can see in the original photograph and the altered one, is just not all that pleasant looking. It's too jumbled. Whereas the original one put on top of that at full strength made it much more appealing image. I then overall added a very delicate pastel texture that altered the color significantly. So that's the show.
Beautiful, beautiful work. Great.
So does anyone have questions?
Yeah, any comments?
Any insights,
questions?
any comments? Yeah, I'm used to students who used to tell me.
They get shy on some of these live
clear.
events. They get a little shy.
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Yep. Andrea says, wow, so inspiring.
Oh, great. I hope all of you consider going to my website. Actually, if we could just show my screen again, I'd like to just show them quickly what the website looks like.
Okay. Now your screen, though, I think you shared slides, so you'd have to do screen sharing itself. Yeah. So you'd have to go to share and then choose screen share.
Okay. Okay. Entire screen.
Okay.
Oh, I don't think I did that right. Did I?
I think so. Let me check here.
No, it did. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's uploading. It's uploading.
It's just showing you. Oh, okay.
It's
So if I
uploaded.
get rid of,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right. So you have to choose the view instead of StreamYard. You have to choose the view of the website itself.
Does that then, if I move this down, do you see my
Right.
actual
Correct.
desktop? You do. Okay,
Right.
good. So I thought I would show you what my actual website, Art for Good,
Right. So if you bring
does.
that up,
And you will,
can you bring that up?
is that up?
No, you need to bring it up. It's kind of like near the bottom part of your desktop. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, and then hit
Okay,
the word
good.
hide. Hit the word hide at the bottom right, bottom middle right. It just so it's not in the recording. Yep. Click that.
Okay, good. Just to say, this is it, Art for Good. And I thought I'd just show you a couple of the sections. Just first of all, you can see it's pretty much organized according to the kind of images. So if someone specifically only wants to look at thank you notes, they can go do that. And another thing, when we all experienced how awful the invasion of Ukraine was, I decided to match. Now, all of the proceeds still go to the Jubilee Fund, but I agreed to match any proceeds and donate that to the effort to help people in Ukraine.
Okay, so let me put that up. So that is here. So 3terrydavis.pixels.com/collection/sunflowers+4+Ukraine.
Yeah. So that has been something people have, just felt they're doing something. Actually, the group I donated to is called Johnny and Friends, and they help people with disabilities flee the country. And that just seems so compelling to me. But I also have Christmas cards, thank you cards, birthday cards, etc. And then it goes into all the other categories. There are many categories: abstract, culture, butterfly, caramel. You get the point. Let's say if you wanted to look at something, let's go here, architecture, and you like this one a lot, you could then go there and choose some kind of print, or very popular item would be coffee mugs, or under stationery. Oh, this isn't going quite so quickly, but let me just quickly show you, because the thing that most people purchase would be cards, greeting cards, which a single one is kind of expensive, but if you get 10, it goes down, or 25. So
sure,
that is it.
Nice.
So can you please repeat the name of the app? Whichever Facebook user asked for that, the name of Topaz Filters, or does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And Jeff says,
Okay,
thank you,
Topaz
Andrew and Terry.
Filters. Thank you, Jeff.
And yeah, wonderful. So once again, just a reminder that you can purchase Terry's art at Art for Good, 3terrydavis.pixels.com. Also, there is at 3terrydavis.pixels.com/collection/sunflowers+4+Ukraine benefit for Ukraine. Right. And then someone had been asking about groups and stuff. So let me go over that first. First is just a reminder to please subscribe for digital art, Photoshop, and photography focused live streams and tutorials on my YouTube. That's Digital Art Drew at youtube.com. The group that we were talking about previously was the Digital Art Group on Facebook. That's facebook.com/groups, the Digital Art Group. And the big group is the Photoshop and Lightroom group, facebook.com/groups, Photoshop, Lightroom group. And then Terry, you also had said there was another group of a woman who I think maybe does the background images.
Oh, yeah. dailytexture.com.
Yeah.
The artist is Jay Johnson. And another really interesting thing for those of you who really want to learn, she has marvelous tutorials. There are a bunch on YouTube, but also if you go to her website, really worth looking at. Okay, the Facebook user, no, the camera app. Okay, that is called, this is the camera app that will give you multiple exposures. It is Average Cam Pro. And I think it might set you back $2.
A whopping $2.
It's like way cheap. So, and I think that is also there for Android phones. I'm not all that sure, but I know for sure for an iPhone, it's there and really, really easy to use.
Nice. Well, that was very wonderful. So thank you so much, Terry. Thanks everyone.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. This is a great opportunity. And thank you to everyone who jumped on board. I'm really, really pleased. Thanks.
Great. And, you know, as a reminder, as I always do, I will be posting the recording in the various Facebook groups on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, of course. So do check it out. And yeah, John says, wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I'm so glad you all came. Thanks.
And I'm not sure if you saw Peter's comment, but he says, I've really enjoyed seeing your work, Terry. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you, Peter. That's very kind.
Great.
And John Williams, thank you.
So keep your eye out for the link to the recording in the various groups. And just a reminder, starting tomorrow, to celebrate passing 300,000 members in the Photoshop Enlightenment group, we are going to be having a contest. It's going to be a fantasy photo compositing contest. So if you do fantasy photo composites or in general photo composites and want to join in, just keep your eye on the top pinned post. The top pinned post is where we always have the contest, live events, news, special deals. All the wonderful things are on the top pinned post. So yeah, and Andrea says, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea.
So yeah, thank you so much, Terry, and thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll see you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in the groups.
Especially Roseanne and all my sisters. Thank you for jumping on.
Thanks, everybody.